Still under the course for Mensuration 1. We want to take a look at the four-sided figure and then the three-sided figure, popularly referred to as the polygons. Now the first polygon that we'll start with is a four-sided figure, and the name is the rectangle. Now let's get into the introduction of the rectangle. A rectangle is a four-sided figure, thereby calling itself a quadrilateral. So a rectangle is referred to as a quadrilateral. Quadrilateral means a four-sided figure. A rectangle has opposite sides equal and parallel. And then you realize that the longest side of a rectangle is referred to as the length, and the other side is the width. So in this diagram, this is the length of the rectangle since it is the longest side among all the other side. And the opposite side can also be called the length. Remember, the opposite side of a rectangle are equal. This is the width, which was formerly referred to as the breadth. The reason why we are using the width is because the word breadth is similar, or it has the same sound as the breath that we use in biology for breathing. So in order not to be confused, the word breadth was changed into the word width, and width is what we are using now. So length and width are the parts of the rectangle, and the opposite sides, as we said, are equal. Now in this diagram, you realize that the width is the base of the rectangle, and then the length are the sides, since the length is the longest side of the rectangle. As I said, the rectangle is also referred to as a quadrilateral because it is having a four side. So a rectangle is a quadrilateral because it has four sides, or it is a four-sided figure. Let's now go deeper and look at some characteristics or some properties of a rectangle before we look at the area and the perimeter of a rectangle. At this point, we want to take a look at the properties of a rectangle. We want to know the rectangle very well by looking at its characteristics, especially how the lines correlate with one another. Now, for you to examine and know the rectangle very well, especially using it in solving questions, you must know all the properties of the rectangle. At property number 1, it states that each interior angle of a rectangle is 90 degrees. That is its right angle. It means that all the angles inside the rectangle are 90 degrees by measurement. That is, each one of them is a right angle. Right angle means 90 degrees. So if you check the four angles inside the rectangle, you realize that one is 90. This one is also 90. 90 and 90. All the interior angles are at 90 degrees. So this is the character of the rectangle. Each angle inside the rectangle is 90 degrees. So take note of that. Another character or another property of the rectangle that students must take note of is that the opposite sides are equal. Opposite sides of the rectangle are equal, and that is what actually makes it a rectangle. We stated that in the introduction of the rectangle. Now if you look at this side AD, the side AD is equal to the side BC because they are opposite to each other. So you can see a strike on the side AD and another strike on the side AD, which are single strikes. And in mathematics, we use strikes to depict equal lines. So when the strike is on the line and there's a strike on another line, the number of strikes on them shows that they are equal. So the side AD and the side BC are equal, and they are opposite to each other. The same as the side AB and the side DC are also equal. That is why you also have two strikes, depicting the fact that they are equal. So that is what makes the opposite side of the rectangle equal. Let us take a look at property number 3, or character number 3 about the rectangle. So far as the opposite sides are equal, then the opposite sides are also parallel. So at property number 3, it says that opposite sides are parallel. So if you take a look at the rectangle, you realize that the opposite sides which were equal are still parallel. So the side AD is parallel to the side BC, and they are indicated by an arrow. In mathematics, arrows shows parallel. The number of arrows on the lines must be the same. So this has a single arrow on AD and a single arrow on BC, showing that the side AD is parallel to the side BC. The same thing applies to the other side. AB is parallel to the side DC. Why? Because there are two arrows here and two arrows here. So line AB and line DC are parallel. And line AD and line BC are also parallel. So it concludes that opposite sides of the rectangle are parallel. Let's go to property number 4. Now, property number 4 states that diagonals equal in length and bisect each other. There are lines inside the diagram for rectangle which are in the corner angles of the diagram called the diagonals. So these two lines are referred to as diagonals. So they are the diagonals. The diagonal lines are just crossing each other. So realize that when they cross each other, what this property is trying to say that the diagonal line here's length is also equal to this length. So if this diagonal's length is 12, this diagonal's length will also be 12. Now one thing is that after they meeting each other here, they bisect. That means the length here will be the same length here. And the length from this side to this side will also be the same length here. So the diagonals, they meet each other. That is, they bisect each other in terms of their length. And they are also equal in length. So diagonals are equal and diagonals bisect each other. That's the meaning. At property number 5, which is the final property, you realize that the rectangle has two lines of symmetry. Now, symmetrical lines are lines that divide the diagram into two equal parts. So the horizontal line of symmetry and the vertical line of symmetry divides the diagram into two equal parts. So they have two lines of symmetry. That is the horizontal one and the vertical one. So these are the various properties of the rectangle. If you're a student and you want to know the rectangle very well and you want to know it very, very well, you have to study the properties of the rectangle and then use it to answer some questions, because not all questions will need a formula for the area and a formula for the perimeter of the rectangle to solve. Some questions will necessarily use the properties of the rectangle in order to solve them. So you have to know the diagram by heart so that you can use their properties, apply it in questions to solve them. Now that we have known the properties, let us now proceed to look at the formula of the area of a rectangle and the formula of finding the perimeter of a rectangle. So our topic is area of a rectangle. Now that we know the rectangle by its properties, we can now take the formula for the area. Don't forget that from the introduction of Mensuration 1, we realized that area is the space occupied by the diagram. Once you've drawn this rectangle A, B, C, D, this is a rectangle with 4 sides, you realize that it has covered a part of this space. Now the space it is occupying is what we call the area. The area of a rectangle is therefore given as area of a rectangle is equal to the length times the width. So then area of rectangle will be equal to length times width in terms of the formula. So this is the formula of finding the area of a rectangle. It means once you know the value of the length and you know the value of the width, you multiply these two to get the area of the rectangle. And don't forget that areas, the unit for it will be in the centimeter squared or meter squared, depending on the unit. Whatever unit you are given, you square it. So the unit you square the unit to get the final answer of the area. So take note of that. Let us take a look at the perimeter of a rectangle. The perimeter of a rectangle is given as perimeter of a rectangle is equal to sum of all its 4 sides. Now sum means add all the 4 sides, because the word perimeter means the distance around the figure. Now the distance around this rectangle will be the lines, the length, and then the width. And the opposite sides are equal. So if this is length, this line is also the length. And if this is the width, this line is also the width. So if you want to sum all 4 sides, it will be equal to the length plus another length plus the width plus the width. It means we have 2 of the length. Length plus length will give us 2 of the length. Plus the width will give us 2 of the width. So if you want to factorize 2 out, you get the length plus the width. So finally, you can talk about the fact that the perimeter of a rectangle is given as 2 lengths plus the 2 width, or 2 each bracket length plus the width. So this is how it is done. Now let's use these two formulas to do some calculations on the rectangle. Now at this point, let us take some illustrative examples on the rectangle. Now this question reads, the length of a rectangle is 8 centimeters and its width is 5 centimeters. Find the area and perimeter of the rectangle. So let us just put down the data and solve this. So solution. Now if this is a rectangle, you realize that the length has been given us, that is length, L is equal to 8 centimeters. So the length is 8 centimeters. And then the width, which is W, has been given as 5 centimeters. Of course, the length is the longest side, so you have to take note of that. So we have 5 centimeters. Now the length and the width are all displayed on the diagram. Now, first of all, we need the area. And we know area of rectangle. Area of rectangle is given by the length times the width. So area will be equal to, the length is 8 centimeters times the width, which is 5 centimeters. So if you multiply 8 by 5, you get 40. So area is equal to 40. centimeters square. So therefore, the area of rectangle is 40 centimeters square. So the area in this question is 40 centimeters square. Let us take a look at the perimeter of the rectangle. Since we still have the length and the width of the rectangle, the perimeter will be given by the formula 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So we have the length as 8 centimeters. So 2 times 8 plus 2 times the width is 5 centimeters. So 2 times 5. And it's going to give us 2 times 8 is 16. Plus 2 times 5 will give us 10. Now 16 plus 10 will give us 26. So we have 26 centimeters. So therefore, perimeter of rectangle is 26 centimeters. Remember, area is in the unit square, so centimeters square. But perimeter is not a square, it is a length or it is a distance. That is a distance around the figure. So centimeters will be a unit for the perimeter. So finally, the answer for area is 40 centimeters squared, and then the answer for the perimeter is 26 centimeters. Thank you very much.